Welcome everyone to the Tuesday night talk. And tonight's topic is going into silence. I'm your host, Elizabeth Padilla, and we are fortunate to have Sister Denise with us. Denise is special in many ways, and I would say her honesty and her love for truth and diving deep, and also taking the courage to look in the mirror of that truth. And it's a lovely balance. And with that, tonight's topic is going into silence.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for being with us for this series of Tuesdays that we are doing from Anubhuti Retreat Center. So today I want to talk about going into silence. And first of all, I would like to clarify that there is a huge difference between physical silence and spiritual silence. And most religious people practice physical silence. And so they don't talk, they have meals in silence without talking, and they go for walks without talking, and they write little notes to each other without talking, and they go and sit alone without talking. And all of that is physical silence. And I had interrogated some of our very senior yogis who have since passed on to find out what their thoughts were on silence. And they said, yes, that's physical silence, but what we do is spiritual silence, and it's really something different. So this is what I'd like to talk about today. So it is one initial thing to say about it is silence of the mind, and it doesn't require silence of the voice. So what does it mean to have silence of the mind, even if you are in noise and you are talking if needed? You don't have to talk just unnecessarily, but there is nothing in the practice of spiritual silence that prevents you from speaking. So spiritual silence, which is very much silence of the mind, is connected with silence at the level of feeling and thought and state of being, while in the body, in the world of sound and sights and all of the things that we experience through our sense perceptions, but yet there is a stillness within while you are in the midst of all of that. And there is a special kind of practice for this, which I would like to introduce you to, which will also, I think, help you to distinguish what really this spiritual silence is about. Now, you hear sounds. There may be someone speaking. There may be ambient sounds. There may be a fire truck passing with their siren. There may be music playing somewhere in another building or outside. And these are sounds that you don't have to listen to. You hear, but you don't have to listen. So listening is where your attention is drawn and you focus your attention on that, but you don't have to. So sometimes people experience that they hear something, but they're not able to prevent themselves from listening to it, even though it's actually a distraction from what they need to be focused on at the time. And being distracted is a real issue for a lot of people because we are continuously bombarded with different kind of images and sounds from everywhere. And especially because of social media and the other kinds of media that constantly wanting to pull our attention. And we can very easily get addicted to that. And this has come up recently, that these algorithms are specially designed to actually make you addicted to that. And that diminishes your ability to be distraction-free when you're not engaged in your computer or your social media or your device. So silence of the spirit is very much connected with your power to focus your attention on what you want, when you want, if you want, and not if you don't want, and for how long you want. And that power to focus your attention at will is a very key element of spiritual silence. So that's hearing. Then there's also seeing. You see all sorts of things. There's something in your visual focus. There's many things going on in your peripheral vision. And you can get distracted and your eyes will go somewhere or somewhere. And when you are distracted, that's when you can get an accident, if driving, for example. That's when you can make a mistake. You can do the wrong thing, say the wrong thing, because your attention wasn't held steady on what you wanted and needed to be attentive to. And so this susceptibility to get distracted is really the noise that you need to be able to control. And you cannot do that by practicing to stop talking and calling that silence. That's physical silence. So what we're trying to do in Raj Yoga is a very different kind of silence, a deep inner silence that allows you to remain focused on what you need to be focused on, when you need to be focused on it, the intensity and degree and all of that. And this is called precision attention. And that is an attribute of spiritual silence. And this is why we talk about silence power. So the same applies to sense of smell, sense of touch, temperature, and so on. So your mind and your focus of attention is an indicator of your willpower. And in life, we are constantly receiving sensory input that we have to edit. All the time we must edit. And that includes anything that comes, whether it's someone comes in the room, someone makes a sound, something happens, all of those things. It takes a nanosecond for you to become aware of it and make a decision. Do I need to pay attention to this or not? And in that nanosecond, you make your decision, you pay attention if necessary, and you edit it out if not necessary. And the consequence of this is you get a very good power of concentration. And you are also able to be still at times when you do not need to pay attention on something in particular. So, if you look at your day from the time when you wake up in the morning and you go through your daily routine and just take a minute to sort of look at the CCTV footage of your day and just remember how you pass through your day. And this is a very useful thing to do at the end of the day and evaluate what happened, what were the lessons, was there something of significance? Did you use your time well? Did you use your heart well? Did you make good decisions whenever a decision was needed? Because there are many decisions that we have to make during the day, just on just a basic ordinary day. Because moment by moment, anything can happen. And something happens that you need to pay attention to while something else is happening that you also need to pay attention to. So there you get a conflict, because you have to realize that you can only focus your attention on one thing at a time, but the speed of your mind is very fast if you have your mind under your control. So when you're doing fairly simple things during the day, at any moment, something unexpected can occur. And when that happens, you need to be able to move your mind quickly between what you need to be focused on that you're in the middle of doing, and you also have to pay attention on what just happened so that you factor it in to what's happening, and you adjust your situation to take it into account while still continuing to do with what you're actually doing at the time when that intervention happened. If it's an intervention that is not needed, that means to say it doesn't require you to pay attention to it, then you just take a nanosecond to notice it, realize you don't have to do anything about it, and get back to what you are focused on. And the amount of time that your mind is somewhere else is really, really quick, which means that your focus of attention is effectively unbroken. If you get pulled by that and you lose your focus of attention on what you're supposed to be doing, something can go wrong with that. And that is called noise. So there's a break in your attention, and it's a break in the power of your focus. So that would be called noise. There are sometimes thoughts that arise in your mind and interfere with what you need to be thinking about. And so that is also another kind of noise. One of the things that happens to people is a kind of self-doubt. And the way it pans out is like this. You are doing something, you're minding your own business, doing some normal thing. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, someone may make a remark which triggers a weakness of yours, which is connected with your self-doubt. And if this distracting thing touches one of your wounds or one of your weaknesses, then it affects you more than if it was just something that comes along that you're neutral about. So this is where you have to really practice the silence. And the silence, it has to take the form of, okay, here it comes again. This is triggering my weakness. I've got it. Understand what's going on. I don't have to actually deal with this at all because it's just reminding me that I have a wound, but I know I have a wound. I don't have to deal with this right now because I am busy dealing with something else. So thank you very much. Have a nice day. See you later. And you need a lot of willpower to do that because it touches your feelings. And your feelings will bubble around or jump up and down and say, oh, something happened. I can't carry on focusing on what I was focusing on because I have to do this. Actually, you don't. And your willpower is also your silence power, which is the power of your decision. And it's not that you're suppressing your feelings or overriding your feelings, but you're saying to them, okay, I hear you, I feel you, I understand you, I know you very well, and we'll talk about it later because we can, but this is not a good time. And so it's like there are many aspects of yourself, and you can say many selves within oneself, but there's the real me, and that's the one in charge, that's the soul, that's the reality. And these other selves are something like personas that are like peripheral to the real you, that have developed in response to wounds or traumas or conditioning or training, or so many things are there where there have been influences that try to take us over and give us an identity that is not actually our real identity, but which is more like a role that we play or a circumstance that we fell into or a trap or a drama of some sort or another. And then we acquire these secondary personalities which vie for our attention and which also vie for position. And they say to the real me, you're not the real me, I'm the real me. And so we need to, one of the reasons why we practice meditation is to find ourselves and know ourselves and not allow any of these subsidiary personalities to take over because they are not real. And another word for them is a false ego. But there are quite big problems around this because we come into circumstances where we are under the influence of parents, teachers, spouse, professional formation, educators, and all of these will say to us, this is who you are, and this is how you have to be. Some of them form like alter egos, and some of them will try to diminish us, and we get into a very low self-esteem, and we think that that is me. Some of them push us up. We get into very high feeling, and we think that is me. And so all of these personas and roles, they are not me. And silence is really about being me, with me, as me, and this is who I am. And then all these other subsidiary selves, which for many years, maybe under different circumstances, you have been receiving messages from people that this is you, this is you, this is you. You are good, you are bad, you are worthy, you are unworthy, you are stupid, you are whatever it happens to be. And this begins in early childhood. And there are very few people who grow up where they're allowed to be themselves and where their actual self is supported and validated. Usually it's diminished and devalued and invalidated. And then it's a big piece of work to actually find yourself again and neutralize all that stuff. And that is noise. So when we're practicing silence and going into silence, it's the same thing as returning to the self and going into who I really am. And it's not that easy because you actually don't know who you are. And the purpose of studying spiritual knowledge and practicing meditation is to pass along a way that takes you to yourself. And then every so often you can grasp yourself and say, yeah, okay, I got it. This is me. And you make a commitment. Yeah, I will be me. I will stay me. And I will not allow any of these other people or circumstances to take me away from myself. But they're good at it. They've been doing it for a long time. They plan on continuing. And you may not be so good at resisting it or being your actual self, because many people will use different forms of manipulation, which are part and parcel of certain cultures and social setups. And I think this word setup is a very good one for that. And you come into the society of people who think that way, and they look at you through that filter, and they have ways to force you into that role. And you have to develop ways to not get forced into that role, which is usually one of diminishing yourself or denying yourself to yourself or doubting yourself. So a lot of this self-doubt and so on is actually imposed by external forces, groups, people, education systems, institution of religion, institution of the family, institution of the military, or whatever institution you happen to be in. And it's all about not allowing a person to be themselves. Whereas spiritual realization, you can say, of the self is to be the self, who you are, and stick with that, and against all odds. So what I'm saying is going into silence is a skill, and it's very active, but it's very secret because all of it is done in your mind. And moment by moment, you are recognizing the different games that are going on, and you are playing your shots in such a way that you win, which means that you remain who you are, and no one is allowed to, or you don't allow anyone to take you away from who you are. And this is called being free from influences. And influences are very powerful. They will trigger memories, and all of this is connected with how you were raised, how all the different conditioning that you have had, which consciously or unconsciously took you away from yourself. And some people, their problem is they were diminished from who they are. Others, their problem is that they think they're the latest, greatest thing when actually they're nothing special. And yet they really believe they are super, super. And they want everybody to, give them accolades. And so they will throw their ego around. And so you get lots of different dynamics between different personalities, all of whom are not themselves. And so that's your context, that's the noise that's on the outside of your body that you experience through your sense perception. It's also on the inside of your being, because you've been conditioned, and there's all of these memories and tendencies and responses that you have been trained to have, which are nothing to do with who you are, but you have been so heavily trained, like a dog or something like that, because the human world likes to do that to each other. And so silence is very connected with freedom, the freedom to be you. So especially in the United States, where most of us are today, we are very aware about freedom. And we have this expression, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that can be interpreted on many levels. And at the most spiritual level is really connected with this practice of silence. So you can just think for a moment of some of the ways in which you get pulled into behaviors that you have been trained to believe are you, but they're not really you, and yet they can be triggered and you get pulled into them just like that. But the thing about meditation and being internally directed and quiet is that you make contact with the real self. And this connection with your real self makes you very uncomfortable about the fact that you got triggered by some trigger which got you to behave in a way that doesn't correspond to who you know you really are deep down on the inside. And then you realize that it is stronger than you. So you have to do something about it. And a very good way to do something about it is to notice it whenever it happens, and to sit with that and analyze carefully how you fell into it, how it had power over you, how it triggered you. One very gross example of how this works is the practice of torture. Not that many people get officially tortured, but a lot of people speak about mental torture. And this is that people will know your weak points, and they will be abusive to you around those weak points, either by verbal abuse or emotional abuse or physical abuse, but most of it is verbal abuse. And they will browbeat you with this, or they will put you in circumstances where you suffer. And then you will do some behavior to minimize the pain that they are giving you. And this behavior will be against who you are. And this is why this kind of abusive behavior is really very damaging. And it takes a lot of effort and time to come out of it. Some people are more abused, some people are less abused, but everybody has had some kind of situation where they get ill-treated in a situation where the person who's ill-treating them has the authority to do that, and you can't protect yourself so well. You have to be really in your power to actually be you when you're in a difficult situation like that. And if it's been going on your whole life, then that's a big deal to come out of. But this practice of silence, which means you connect with who you are and you spend time with who you are so that it's quite clear to you who you are. And then you practice by going into situations where you know people look at you as something that you're not. They may be prejudiced against you for one reason or another, your skin color, your class, your caste, your whatever it happens to be. People look at each other through all these filters, and then they treat each other according to the filter. And then you kind of get pulled into that false identity. But when you're close to yourself, really being who you are, and then you go consciously into the company of someone who you know is going to be horrible to you or talk down to you or something like this, and then just practice to not really pay much attention to what they're doing, but really pay attention to how you are, how you feel, where what they do gets to you. Sometimes they'll take you by surprise. Sometimes you have a particular principle or value that you live by, and they may accuse you of being the opposite of that. And their accusation may destabilize you, and then you get a doubt, or maybe they're right. And what that means is you give away your power and you let them take over your sense of self. And that's a very serious mistake. And a lot of the conditioning is about preventing people from being able to be their own selves and defend themselves against this kind of manipulation. So the whole thing of silence is to be able to see it playing out and play your part, so that they are unsuccessful in manipulating you or making you feel bad about yourself or any of that. Because when they succeed, you betray yourself. And this self-betrayal actually triggers a lot of negative thinking, or what we call waste thinking. And what this does is it drains away all your power. And this is very noisy stuff. And when you practice to not speak, it's actually extremely counterproductive. You have to be able to stand up for yourself and speak for yourself, and become very skilled in taking control of the situation so that you are the master. And silence will help you with that. Silence means to affirm who you are, no matter what anybody says. And the key of the manipulation is to make you doubt yourself or make you think that you're not as good as them, something like this. These are just games that people play. And you need to know the games and not buy into them or get caught up in them. And this is a skill that needs a lot of time and attention and so on to learn. So a very important element of that is affirming yourself, who you are to yourself, so that you are again and again in contact with yourself. Then you go out through a sense organ, a sense perception, something's going on in the world. You decide what you're going to pay attention to, how important it is. Everything is about you. And the way most people get trained is everything is about everybody else. And they will say, well, if you're a good person, you will be compliant. And actually, that's not true. If you're a weak person, you will be compliant. If you're a good person, you will go along with what you decide to go along with, and not if not. That means you're in your power. So silence and being who you are, silence and being in your power is all one thing. And silence doesn't mean that you just shut down or check out or something like this. No. Silence is you are who you are with yourself, and in any circumstance, you are the center of the universe, and you observe the performance of whatever's going on, and you position yourself where you judge is the suitable position to take in terms of what's going on. You don't have to be center stage all the time or even much of the time, but you have to decide. You're going to be in the middle, on the side, in the back, in the front. You can make yourself disappear. You can make yourself the focus of attention. Any of this, depending on the needs of the circumstance. And for that, you need good judgment. And you need good perception to understand, because there's a game going on all the time. There's a game, and you need to understand, okay, what's the game here, and what part do I need to play here so that the outcome of the game is the best for everyone concerned. And then you're not a pawn in the game. You don't want to be a pawn in the game. And so if you try to diminish yourself or just close down or something like this, you're really not going to be in your power. You're just going to be physically silent, or you're going to be socially silent. But that is really to betray who you are. You don't have to be outspoken. You don't have to be aggressive. Aggression is a sign of somebody who's not really in control of themselves. Silence is to be in control of yourself, having understood who you are. So being in control of yourself is like you are the master, and you can do what you want, when you want, if you want, how you want, for as long as you want, and it will be the right thing at the right time. So this is also called precision thinking, precision feeling, Or in an expression that was used in our class earlier today, accurate thinking, accurate thoughts, accurate words, accurate actions, the right thing at the right time, because you are who you are. And to be in that state, you have to be balanced. And someone balanced is someone silent. So we're not talking about physical silence at all, but sometimes people don't really quite get it because they think, well, silence means physical silence, and that's very good, physical silence, no problem. But what we're doing here is something else. Spiritual silence, silence of the mind, stillness, balance, readiness. You're alert. You're aware of all the different levels of whatever's going on. And then by your own choice, you come into action, and you are not influenced by or triggered by all the other people who are around. This is the practice of silence. So I'm going to take a moment to maybe come back to Elizabeth, but I think that we would like to have a few minutes of a meditation that can help us to be internally, spiritually silent and still and unmoving. It's rather like a candle flame which is still and steady, and that's only possible where there's no wind. And in terms of the spirit, the wind that moves that candle flame is feelings and emotions. And your feelings and emotions arise from associations, from thoughts, from what you see, what you hear. Everything is a trigger for something. And yet you hold yourself still and steady like an unwavering candle flame. And an emotion may be raised by something that you remember or you feel, and you just let that energy of that feeling pass through you. You don't suppress it, you acknowledge it, but it doesn't rule you. Something someone says may be calculated to destabilize you. You catch it. You hold your position. You sit on your seat of self-regard, self-honor, and you say, okay, all right, that was interesting. Have a nice day. I'm not going to be disturbed by that. I am the master of myself. And you let your attention go deep inside so you can feel yourself. You find yourself. You find the vibration that is the real you, and you stay with that. You can hold that steady for a while. There are things going on, people around, but your attention is on the self. I am me, and that's that. Do not try to please people, because that's the same as giving away your power. Doesn't mean that you're selfish, but you are with the self. And when you are with the self, authentically, deeply, in a real way, then also you are with the Supreme Being. You are with the one who is truth. When you are true to yourself. Many things come to take you away, but every time you return back to base, back to yourself, a still, stable, steady being of light. Your individuality is yours. You have your own vibration. Your own sense of self. Your own value. Everyone is different, and you are you. So it's very important to give time to just be. Don't have to do anything. But you have the right to be. So cultivate that, and grow that, expand and extend that. Fill the atmosphere around you with who you are and establish your aura wherever you go. Om Shanti.
And thank you so much, Sister Denise. It was just delightful. And thank you everyone for joining us. And please come back next Tuesday and we'll dive deeper into these aspects of spiritual development. Om Shanti. So let's